Picking up on problem number 4, find the values of x and y such that line PR and line QS are perpendicular. When you see the word perpendicular, what does it mean? What does the word perpendicular mean? It means makes right angles. When two lines are perpendicular, where they cross makes 4 right angles. So if PR and QS are intersecting, then over here is a right angle, and over here is a right angle. One of those angles is just 4y minus 2. So we would have 4y minus 2 equals 90. On the other side, it's two smaller angles that you have to put together to get the 90. So we would have 5x plus 6 plus 2x equals 90. Let's solve the one over here on the left for y. I'm going to start by adding 2 to both sides. So that would give me 4y equals 92. And then I would divide both sides by 4. What is 92 divided by 4? 23. So y is 23. Over here with the x's, the first thing we need to do is combine our like terms together. When we're on the same side of the equal sign, we combine. We do not use an opposite operation. So I would have 5x plus 2x. That gives me 7x. So 7x plus 6 equals 90. And then we subtract 6 from both sides. I get 7x equals 84. And then we divide both sides by 7. What is 84 divided by 7? 12. Nicely done. All right. Let's look down at the middle of the page now that we are warmed up. Write down some ideas that we talked about yesterday, but we're going to get them all collected into just one spot right here. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90 degrees. Two angles that add to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two angles that add to 180 degrees. Vertical angles, these are opposite angles when two lines cross. And they are congruent. They are congruent. Linear pair angles are adjacent and supplementary. Adjacent and supplementary, they add to 180. They make a line together. Perpendicular is two lines or segments or rays that intersect at a right angle. So 90 degrees. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at a couple more example problems now. Number 6. Given the measure of angle A is 2x plus 33 and B is equal to 3x plus 15, if A and B are complementary, find the measure of both angles. Complementary means they add to what? Add to 90. So we would have the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is equal to 90 degrees. What can we put in the place of angle A? 2x plus 33, yes. Plus, what can we put in the place of the measure of angle B? 3x plus 15. Is equal to 90. And now we're going to solve this for x. So over on the left-hand side, the first thing we need to do is combine our like terms. 2x and 3x combine to give me 5x. And then we have to combine our constants also, 33 and 15. 33 and 15 would combine to give me what? 48. So 5x plus 48 equals 90. Then we subtract 48 from both sides. What is 90 minus 48? 42. Then we divide both sides by 5. Are we going to get a whole number here? No, that's okay. That does not mean that we made a mistake. What is 42 divided by 5? Yep. 8.4. Beautifully done. All right. Did the question ask us to find x, though? What did the question say to do? Find the measure of both angles. So now what do we need to do with that x? Substitute. So the measure of angle A is equal to 2x plus 33. So the measure of angle A is equal to 2 times 8.4 plus 33. What is 2 times 8.4 plus 33? Feel free to. 49.8, thank you. 49.8. And then the measure of angle B is 3x plus 15. So we have 3 times 8.4 plus 15. What is 3 times 8.4 plus 15? 40.2. And these two angles should add to 90. Do they? Does 49.8 plus 40.2 add to 90? Yes, it does. What'd you say? All right. Let's flip over to page 11. Now we want to find the measure of what type of angle? Supplementary. And supplementary angles add to how much? 180. Adds to 180. If the measure of the larger angle is 6 less, then triple the measure of the smaller angle. So we know that we have two angles here, a larger angle and a smaller angle, and they add to 180. Do we know anything about the smaller angle? No. So we're going to let the smaller angle be x. You need to put your name, date, and time on here with the marker, and then the marker goes here. The larger angle, we have been given some information about. We were told that the larger angle is 6 less than, so we're going to have something take away 6, triple the measure of the smaller angle. Well, what did we call the measure of the smaller angle? We called it x. When it says triple the measure of the smaller angle, what operation do we do there? Multiplication. Now listen, this is really important. They told us about the subtraction first, but that is not the first thing that we write down in this expression. They told us about the subtraction, but it has to come after the multiplication because it's order of operations. Addition and subtraction happens at the end. So we're going to write down 3 multiplied by our smaller angle, 3x, and then we will take 6 away from that. It is not 6 minus 3x. That's a very different expression, and it is wrong. 6 minus 3x is 3x less than 6, not 6 less than 3x. Yes? Yep, put 3 because it said triple. So again, when they tell you about addition or subtraction, and then they tell you about multiplication, the multiplication has to come first, and then you write down any addition or subtraction that happens after that. So let's substitute in now. I have 3x minus 6 that I can put in place of L, plus, in the place of S, we're going to put x, and that's equal to 180. Then we combine our like terms. 3x and x combine together to give me 4x. So I have 4x minus 6 equals 180. Then we add 6 to both sides. 4x equals 186. Divide both sides by 4. And we get another decimal answer. What do we get? 46.5, yes. 46.5. But we are supposed to find the measures of the two angles. It says find the measure of two supplementary angles if the measure of the larger angle is 6 less than triple the measure of the smaller angle. Well, I know the size of one of the angles because we let x represent which angle? This is my smaller angle. So 46.5 degrees. For the larger angle, that was 3x minus 6. So 3 times 46.5 minus 6. What is 3 times 46.5 minus 6? Three times 46.5 minus 6. Grab a calculator if you need to. What is 3 times 46.5 minus 6? Guys, if you're not doing this on the calculator, you need to get up and get a calculator. 133.5 degrees. This is our larger angle. And these two angles should add to 180 because we said they were supplementary. Should add to 180 degrees. All right. Let's look at number 8. Number 8 says ray RS and ray RT are perpendicular. Perpendicular means what again? Yes, means makes right angles. So we're going to draw these two rays, and we're going to make them make a right angle. Remember, a ray has an arrow that goes in one direction, so one of my rays is going to go up like this. One of my rays is going to go over like this. Right here is the point that they have in common. That's R. And then I put either S or T up here. I'm going to put S here. I'm going to put T here. And we know that this is a right angle because it said they were perpendicular. Point V lies in the interior of angle SRT. So somewhere in here, there's a point V. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a ray from R through V. Then it says here that the measure of angle SRV is 9J minus 44. SRV is this angle right here. So that is not necessarily. We don't know that it's exactly in the center, but it is in the interior. If we were told that the two angles were congruent, then it would be a bisector. So 9J minus 44. That was a fantastic question, by the way. And then angle VRT is 6J minus 14. VRT is this angle down here. So down here, we're going to put 6J plus 14. We know that those two angles together make what type of angle? Starts with an R. Makes a right angle. And a right angle is how many degrees? 90 degrees, yes. So we have the measure of angle SRV plus the measure of angle VRT equals 90 degrees. SRV we can replace with 9J minus 44. You're still in the same seat because I didn't want to move you. You're welcome. All right, VRT is 6J plus 14. It's equal to 90. And then we combine our like terms together. We're going to combine the two J's together, the 9J and the 6J. That'll combine to give me how many J's? Thank you, Antonio. 9 plus 6 combines to give me what? 15. So I have 15J. And then we combine our constants together, negative 44 and positive 14. What is that going to combine to give me? Negative 30. So I have 15J minus 30 equals 90. Then I add 30 to both sides. So 15J equals 120. And then we divide both sides by 15. What is 120 divided by 15? 8. So J is 8. That was one of the things we were supposed to find. What else are we supposed to find? SRV and VRT. So the measure of angle SRV, 9J minus 44. So I have 9 times 8 minus 44. I know that 9 times 8 is 72. And then 72 minus 44 would give me what? What is 9 times 8 minus 44, or 72 minus 44? 28. So this is 28 degrees. Then we have the measurement of angle VRT. This is 6J plus 14. So 6 times 8 plus 14 What is 6 times 8 plus 14? 62. And these two angles should add up to what? Yes, they should add to 90. When you see complementary or perpendicular, you have angles that are going to be 90s. When you see supplementary or linear pairs, you have angles that are going to add to be 180. All right. Let's look down at number 9. Use the picture to answer the following questions. Angle CEF, this angle right here, and angle BEH, this angle right here, are what type of angles? Vertical. These are vertical angles. When they're on opposite sides of the X, they're vertical angles. That's okay. We're still learning them. All right. What about angle CEB, this angle right here, and angle CEF, this angle right here? That's what a linear pair looks like. Yes, that's a linear pair. Yep. They share a side. Side by side, together they make a line. All right. What about CBE, this one right here, and GBE, this one right here? Well, I would want to say linear. They do share a side. Do their non-shared sides make a straight line? No. They are adjacent. Now, I want you to look right beside the blue angle. Do you see this box right here? That means that this line and this line are perpendicular. Where they are crossing makes a right angle. That means all those corners right here would also be a 90-degree angle. So these are adjacent and complementary. Almost don't have enough room for that word. Adjacent and complementary. No, that's a great question. If they're adjacent, they are not always complementary. But if they are complementary, they have to be adjacent. All right. Next question. Angle ABD is 52 degrees. Well, ABD is this one right here. We're saying that that's 52 degrees. We want to know how big angle ABC is. What kind of angles are those? Yes, that's a linear pair. And linear pair angles add to what? They add to 180. So 52 degrees plus the measure of angle ABC is equal to 180. So then I'm going to minus 52 from both sides to find angle ABC. What is 180 minus 52? 128. So this is 128 degrees. What about angle CBE, this one that I just did in pink? What do you notice about the blue and the pink angles? They're a vertical pair, they're vertical angles. And what's true about vertical angles? Starts with a C. They're congruent. So if ABD is 52 degrees, how big is CBE? Also 52 degrees, yes. So these two angles would be congruent. All right. The measure of angle CGB equals, it should be CBG. Let's fix that. Is it right on yours? CBG. I apologize for having a typo up on my screen. Angle CBG. C over to B and all the way to G. What kind of an angle is that? It's a right angle. How big are right angles? 90 degrees. Because ray BH, here's ray BH, is perpendicular to line DC. Perpendicular to line DC. All right. We're going to flip over to page 12 now. And we're going to look at a list of things that we are allowed to assume from looking at a diagram and things that we are not allowed to assume from looking at a diagram. In geometry, figures are sketches that can be used to depict a situation. They are not drawn to reflect total accuracy. Certain relationships can be assumed from a figure, but most cannot. So these are the things that we are allowed to assume from a picture. All the points and lines shown are coplanar. So we can assume things are coplanar. If I have 3 points that are all on the same line together, I am allowed to assume that they are collinear. The rays that come back here and touch at point H, I'm allowed to assume that they all intersect at H. I'm allowed to assume that points are between other points. So H is between G and J. I'm allowed to assume that L is on the interior of angle MHK. I'm allowed to assume that if angles share a side, that they are adjacent angles. I'm allowed to assume if they share a side and together make a straight line, that they are a linear pair and that makes them supplementary. Things that I cannot assume. We're going to start the list here and then continue it on the next screen. Lines that appear perpendicular might not be. So I cannot assume that lines are perpendicular. Just because they look like they make a right angle does not mean I can assume that. I would have to see a little box in the corner to know that they're perpendicular, or I would have to be told. Angles that appear to be congruent might not be. So we cannot make assumptions about angles that look like they're the same size. Same thing with my segments. Segments that appear to be congruent may not be. So I cannot make that assumption. So looking at this figure here at the bottom of the page, I am allowed to assume points of intersection. So I can identify vertical angles in any picture. I can always go through and identify vertical angles. Linear pairs are allowed to be assumed from the figure. So we can apply all of our characteristics that we know about linear pairs, such as supplementary angles. So I know that angle ABD and CBE are vertical angles, and that means that they are congruent. I know that EBA and ABD form a linear pair, so I know that that means they are supplementary. They add to 180. All right. Let's go through on page 13 and determine whether or not we are allowed to make these assumptions based on the figure. So I'm looking for yeses and nos. Yeses and nos. Ray CE and ray CF are opposite rays. Would I be allowed to assume that? Yes. Angle BGC and KGC form a linear pair. Would I be allowed to assume that? Yes, we are allowed to assume linear pairs from a figure. Angle ABJ and CBG are vertical angles. Yes, I can make that assumption. Angle BCG and DCF are congruent. No. Segment BE and line IF are perpendicular. No. All right, let's go do F, G, and H next. F. Angle EBC and angle GBC are complementary angles. Am I allowed to assume that? I am not. That would be the same as assuming things are perpendicular. Yep. Assuming that they are complementary means I am assuming I know it is a right angle, and we're not allowed to do that. Angle ICH and angle HCD are adjacent angles. Yes, I am allowed to assume that. Segment BC is an angle bisector of angle ECG. Am I allowed to assume that things are bisectors? No. I can know that it's inside, but I don't know if it's a bisector. I don't know that it's cutting something exactly in half. All right, let's go do the last question. Which statements cannot be assumed from the figure? Angle KHJ and GHM are complementary. Can we assume that from the figure? No, so I'm going to circle that. Angle GHK and JHK are a linear pair. Am I allowed to assume that? Yes, I am allowed to assume that. Ray HL is perpendicular to ray HJ. I cannot assume that. Angle GHM and MHK are adjacent angles. That I am allowed to assume. Now this one gets a little tricky. HL, ray HL is perpendicular to ray HM. This one I can assume from the figure because why? What's in this picture that lets me make that assumption? The box. If the box wasn't there, then I couldn't make that assumption. But because they drew the little box in the corner, I can make that assumption. All right. That finishes up our notes for today. Homework is due on Monday. Homework is due on Monday.